What makes Fire Emblem Three Houses unique? Leading up to release, the Fire Emblem community was wary of Three Houses. Many pre-ordered, hopes were high, but expectations were reserved. As reviewers with early access started to share their opinions, suddenly fans saw potential. And then, triumphantly, as the game hit store shelves, fans of all kinds have agreed it is a fantastic title in the Fire Emblem franchise. Highly rated, memes everywhere, YouTube clamors for content, and only nitpicks at the worst end of critiques. Hello, I'm Kevin, creator of this channel and a longtime Fire Emblem fan. I feel like I have finally played the game for long enough, and I've seen a lot of how the community has responded to it. I feel like I can finally take some time with you to discuss what makes Fire Emblem Three Houses unique. Garrett Monastery. This place was rightfully hyped a lot in the trailers. Not long into the game at all does the player, as Byleth, become a professor and pick their house within this large school and church. Playing a huge role in the story, Garrett is like the base from Path of Radiance mixed with a town from a standard RPG. Since spending time with characters is a big part of Fire Emblem, this is a great way to put all those features into one neat area. My castle from Fates wasn't nearly as fleshed out as this, nor did it play into the story to nearly the same effect. Here there are fetch quests, gifts to share, lost items to return, and characters from all sides of the story with takes on the events as they unfold. In a long-form conversation on Lucky Crit's YouTube channel, Fire Emblem YouTubers Chaz Aria, Mangs, and host Stevie mentioned how surprisingly time-consuming the Monastery segments were. Those doing Let's Plays even considered cutting it out, but understood the importance of making the most of this time.
I love this game. Yeah, me too.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun.
We got a good Fire Emblem game, guys.
I know.
As part of the monthly progression through the game, the Monastery becomes a hub for the player. This is the time to buy items, gain stats in class, take certification exams, and tackle paralog missions. Exploration has an arena to grind in, a chance to talk to other houses and faculty who play ancillary roles to the story. There is a dining hall to boost supports or give the team a buff for the month, fishing minigames, and a garden to grow plants. There are tea time minigames which are actually really hard, and there's even more things to do. Not to mention DLC that will also add to this list. It feels like a more intimate way to connect the characters, the player, and the story. Support conversations can take place all over the monastery, so it's no longer just a generic castle scene. It feels tied to the characters and the modern Fire Emblem focus on building the units to be anywhere from min-max to janky. It can play into the often memey side of Fire Emblem, especially with the tea time, but it's a lot more approachable when the game treats the hub as a focal point for the adventure. Many smaller conversations discuss the happenings of the previous chapter, and as the story unfolds, it's nice to hear how all characters are taking to it. There are even dialogue options that require good understanding of each character's personality, rewarding players with support points. This is also a place to recruit units from other houses. It's a nice dynamic where characters of the other story paths can be side characters to the current path. The Monastery and the monthly schedule as a format are a fresh change to the Fire Emblem formula. Nothing is particularly complicated, and the seminars to raise stats can even be done automatically. Resting is also an option to speed through the game, but by the end of the month it is time for the story mission, and the tried and true gameplay expected of the series. Gameplay. No Fire Emblem game has truly strayed from the turn-based combat that defines the series. Take turns to move units, attack enemies, using the terrain for cover, and ever-changing percentages of hitting and critting that can leave players surprised or frustrated. Where each game aims to dig deeper on the formula is through the depth of stats and abilities within the characters. Of the returning mechanics, there are skills. Class skills like lockpicking for thieves and bonus range for archers and mages, personal skills for each character, and skills that come from grinding certain stats like the weapon breakers. There are budding talents as well, which are a second personal skill that can be unlocked through grinding specific stats with that character. Characters of noble lineage have special traits through their crests. Each crest can activate randomly in battle with a variety of effects. Between the skills, budding talents, and crests, each unit has their unique specialities. Speaking of the breakers, this is another Fire Emblem game with no innate weapon triangle, but the breaker skills now fill that hole. This makes the early game easier while subtly keeping the triangle in the game. There is one new weapon type, the gauntlets. With a built-in double strike like a brave weapon, these can do a lot of damage, but they have no ranged options and can't be wielded on horseback. Important note here, all magic classes can also wield weapons, but physical classes cannot wield magic. Combat arts are back and take advantage of the returning weapon durability by using it as a resource. Combat arts are unit specific, so learning what each character can unlock within each weapon type is a fun concept to explore. When weapons break, the blacksmith back at the monastery can fix and upgrade them like new. Magic is also unique to each unit, and it's exciting to see what each unit has available to them. There are two types of magic, Faith and Reason. Faith is more healing and utility, Reason is more dark magic and high damage spells. Though every class can use most weapons, with only a few exceptions, the stats needed to unlock said class still leads units to focus on specific weapon types. It's both strict on what to use, but by the end of the game, anything is possible. Stats such as horse riding and flying are also required for their associated classes, but there is the new stat called Authority. These are for the completely new battalions. These are attachable soldiers with slight stat buffs and a special action called a Gambit. Most Gambits are damaging, sometimes support, sometimes AoE, and Stride is broken. They level up with their own experience points, and now this level up graphic just gives players a lot more information than they ever used to. This is probably the most complex skill and combat system in the series. Every unit can be meticulously built as players choose and are often rewarded for trying different builds. It can make each playthrough feel different, but with enough direction to guide new players. Many maps can be played in a variety of ways, from rushing in with Stride to holding a defensive formation. Units can pair up again, but this is now more limited thanks to the adjutants. Adjutants are set before a chapter, and players can only pick a handful. It ain't rescuing, but it's nice to see a balance to what was overpowered in Awakening and Fates. Mowing down waves of units is fun for longtime fans, but there is one new big obstacle in the way. And that is the monsters. Usually saved as a final boss of a Fire Emblem game, these units cover 4 tiles and must be handled with tact. They carry their own rules, 1 shield per tile they cover. When one is broken, they will not counterattack on their next fight, plus their defenses will be lowered. Break all 4 and get a rare crafting item and the rest of the turn to wail on them. Gambits are a safe bet since there is no counterattack, but it doesn't take long until entire chapters are filled with monsters. Trying to fend off more than 2 becomes a challenge in itself. They land on the fine line of simple enough to handle, but their daunting size makes positioning ever more important, and the stronger ones still pose a threat. Some can even fly. When mistakes are made, there is the Divine Pulse, a returning mechanic to rewind the clock and try a different strategy. Its uses are just limited enough that letting a unit go might just have to happen. There's also online functionality with these glowing spots on the ground. Areas where characters have been defeated can give items or experience. The online also tracks which units have been popular recently, which is something that Fire Emblem fans seem to crave, and now it's updated regularly in-game. It can even guide players during each month in-game to show players what others are doing. With the variety of units and monsters to face, it strikes the balance of classic Fire Emblem with the breadth that's expected of the 16th title in the series. But all this fighting is happening for a reason, and no Fire Emblem game holds water without a conflict that fuels the war. Story and presentation. This will be as spoiler-free as possible, nothing beyond what was said during the promotional ads for the game. Finally, a split story that works. All sides can be seen as good or bad, and all sides are driven by its main characters. The lords of each house guide that house's side of the story. Rhea and many followers of the church also play their part as well. A world map with clear borders and power struggles. Each house corresponds to a country, and the church is the famed neutral ground. There's a good amount of backstory, but it leaves the player in the dark. There are a lot of inner workings hidden from each perspective, and when the villains look this cool, it's appreciated. There's also a good political foundation for conflict with the crests and holy lineages. The characters are split into nobles and commoners, which leaves the irksome sense of a classist society. Byleth is the player's perspective, and being silent allows them to feel separate from the main conflict. However, how they fit is still important to the story. Even the power of the Divine Pulse is used as a plot point. There is a time skip in this game, and it separates a key switch in tone. The pre-time skip lays the foundation from the in-house rivalries, and the post-time skip pushes the conflict to its climax. A big selling point of the game was that choices matter. This can range from dialogue options to making sure to complete certain paralogs. The narrator explains why and how the houses are feuding and where the player is marching. It is nice to see a visual of where the team is moving for each chapter. It sets the stage for an all-out war, and having 3 houses lets the 2 not chosen fill the role of lead and support antagonists. The story is worth sitting through not only because of the good writing, but also for the beautiful presentation. The cutscenes are clean and polished, and being on the big screen, it has the power to show more grandiose scenes. The voice acting is very well done, and the battle quotes are back, both in and out of combat. Crits are epic, but they also like to make comments on their condition each turn, or remind players who they are.
I am Ferdinand von Eyre.
Many voice actors have come out to express their enjoyment of playing these characters. Joe Zija has pretty much become a YouTuber since his portrayal of Claude. It can excite players to play that route, and good on him and the other actors for supporting the community. The animation is smooth and adds life to the support conversations, as simple as they may be. The text boxes and portraits look clean with its use of bright colors and sharp lines that lends to the clean anime aesthetic that Fire Emblem has always aimed for. The Monastery is a nice setting for many conversations to be had, but the story will go beyond those borders. This green room feels like a subtle callback to the green rooms in the GBA games. This all lends itself to cel-shaded graphics. With this being the first 1080p Fire Emblem game, it looks sharp. All the different class outfits are ornate and defining. They leave enough room for the characters to look like they fit in them, but some are definitely a bit extra. There's a lot of control over the battle HUD too, a good balance for handheld and TV play. It's easy to just set it behind the units for the farthest view forward, but the default zoom is still a bit close. Would help when portable though. This third person angle though, who could play like this constantly? No presentation is complete without the music, and this is easily some of the best music in the series. As Fire Emblem is finally coming into maturity and a big seller for Nintendo now, songs strike the balance of catchy but monumental. Leitmotif's the main theme, which is always appreciated, but to risk copyright infringement as much as possible, I'm gonna just share one theme that I really love, the Battle Prep theme, As Swift as the Wind. Have a quick listen. There's just so much swinging and those stings hit really hard. Who knew just picking your team and cleaning up your inventory could feel so epic? This is easily one of the biggest and most prolific Fire Emblem games in a while. There's a lot to say about Three Houses, and in ways it feels different from every other Fire Emblem game, but the new additions blend into the established formula, rather than overshadow it. The way to progress through chapters is different, the split story that actually works, and a level of customization that's free enough to do anything, but focused enough to give players direction. The characters are more than just their tropes, the story incorporates them as it expands, the graphics are clean and colorful but with 1080p sharpness, and the music is both memorable and awe-inspiring. By the end of my first run, I was excited to try the game from new perspectives and build my units in new and interesting ways, and the fact that I do want to replay the game is a sign of a quality video game. In fact, there's even a new game plus which would take way too long to discuss, so here is a video on that. And you can also follow us on Twitch because we'll be starting our first live stream of Three Houses finally. We'll be getting back to streaming over on Twitch. Links in the description. Thanks for watching, because that is what makes Fire Emblem Three Houses unique.